What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com, live on Facebook Thursday afternoon. Not a whole heck of a lot of news going on, other than the fact that the Packers have signed second-round pick Josh Jackson, leaving Oren Burks as their only remaining holdout. It's not really a holdout. Undoubtedly, he will be signed before the start of OTAs on Monday, but one of their 11 draft picks remains unsigned. Clearly, the slotting mechanism of the new collective bargaining agreement doing its job, getting these guys under contract in no time flat. Hello, everyone, jumping in the comments section. How are you? Just so you guys know, I just dropped my latest podcast at PackersNews.com. Make sure you go and check that out. I talk about the right tackle spot, Mike Daniels, the offense, a bunch of stuff. So make sure you check that out. Matthew, what's new? Not much. The Packers have signed their second-round pick. That's about the extent of the newness when it comes to the Packers. What's up, North Hudson? Happy Thursday, Luis. What's up, man? George, good afternoon. Don't make him an offer he can't refuse. Andy, that's a good question. I have no idea what's for dinner. Hey, Matt, how are you? Oh, Wayne, thanks for listening to Bill Michaels. Bill's always kind enough to ask me on from time to time. Is Rodgers' contract going to revolutionize contracts for players as Wilde suggests? Man, if Jason Wilde said it, you can just bet the opposite. I'm kidding. I like Jason. He's a friend. I don't know about revolutionize. I think it will be very particular to Aaron Rodgers. I have little doubt he will try to push the ball forward as much as he can when it comes to guarantees and trying to jump off of what Kirk Cousins achieved with Minnesota. What's interesting is that, we clearly have the fully guaranteed deal there in Minnesota for 3 years with Cousins, but then you had Matt Ryan signing, and I know some people felt that was a bit of a step back because clearly Ryan's deal is not fully guaranteed. I never expected it to be. I think whatever Aaron Rodgers ends up doing contract-wise is not going to have much in the way of precedence when it comes to other Packers contracts. Now, it may set the landscape going forward for quarterback contracts, but I'd be very surprised if whatever mechanisms they end up using, maybe whatever new ground they perhaps break in the sense of how things are structured, whatever that may end up being, like I said, I think that may play into how other top quarterbacks go about negotiating with their teams, but I would be very surprised if they set any kind of precedents that had long-term ripple effects within the organization and how those contracts are handled outside of face of the franchise. Chances Martinez can be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate? Whew. I guess there's a chance. I think he has to improve in a couple of areas. Namely, you got to create those turnovers. That's what generates the buzz and gets your name out there. But then, the coverage issues are still prevalent. The tackle numbers are great, but as anyone who has even watched the film in passing will tell you, a lot of those tackles happen 4 or 5 yards down the field. It'd be nice if a few more of those happened at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. And that's not to say that he doesn't do that. He absolutely does. But you'd like to see just a little bit less ground covered by the back or the wide receiver or what have you, whoever he's tackling. Just say, ask me in August. Yeah, ask me in August. Bye. I'm kidding. What did you think of the Jones and Alexander wearing their Packers jersey on graduation day? I thought it was great. I thought it was excellent. Great show of not only, the next step in their journey, so to speak, from college to the pros, but great sense of pride in the organization that they're headed to. I think it's a great display. What are the long-term effects of legalized sports betting? A lot of out-of-work bookies. Will either of the Packers' splash signings in free agency, Wilkerson or Graham, be on the team in 5 years? I doubt it. How many Aaron Marys you think will be thrown next season? That is a great question, Eduardo. I'll say 2. Wide receiver depth chart? Nick, we got to let camp play out before we can even begin to get an idea of what that'll look like. So as someone said, ask me in August. I will say, clearly Devontae Adams is your lead dog, and you've got Randall Cobb in the slot. And then the big competition will be that other perimeter position that Jordy Nelson used to hold down. I think clearly Geronimo Allison is your leader in the clubhouse there, but they like those young guys that they've drafted. They've got Michael Clark and D'Angelo Yancey held over from last year, so it's going to be a heck of a battle, no doubt about it. When are Woodson or Driver getting their Ring of Honor? Woo! I doubt Driver would. Yeah, I would be surprised if Woodson did either. I mean, Driver's obviously your all-time leading receiver in the franchise, but Ring of Honor, that's a bit much. And Woodson clearly was a defensive player of the year, a great player who helped them win a Super Bowl. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like he was with the team long enough to go up into the Ring of Honor. Rodgers says he's ready for a Super Bowl run. Yeah, Richard, well, it is the off season. They often are. Will Rodgers' next contract be his last with the Packers? I'm sure the Packers would like it to be. I'm sure they'd like to get a 5-year deal, and after that, he'll be in his just into his 40s. Maybe they do one more, a year-by-year contract, maybe something like the Saints are doing with Drew Brees. But it really depends. Possibly, if they shockingly do give him a fully guaranteed deal, I would tend to think that's got to be that would be much shorter. But I'd be surprised if they went down that road. Will they blitz Josh Jones more like Woodson? Michael, that's a really good question. I think it's pretty clear watching his tape. He's much more comfortable around the line of scrimmage, taking on tight ends, blitzing the quarterback, being allowed to be physical. He really struggled in space for the second half of that season last year. Yeah, I think you'd like to see him kind of let loose a little bit. It'll be interesting to see between him and Jair Alexander who is asked to get after the quarterback more, because I think Alexander could be really good in that role as well. Telling Aaron Rodgers' age makes you feel old. I hear you, man. 2018 record. Oh, man, Bill, let's get through camp first. Ale or lager? Oh, always an ale. Although I do enjoy both. Did the Packers start looking for Rodgers' successor in 3 years? My hunch is it'll be before that. You never really know. It really depends on lots of circumstances will play into it. But I will say, having 2 first-round picks next year, maybe they can find a quarterback with one of those. Now, I don't think the odds are very unlikely, but you never know. What's the latest on the Dez talk? There is none, Mary Beth. What's the new GM scorecard? Is he making similar mistakes, not signing many free agents? I don't know about that. I think he's done a pretty good job. I think letting Jordy Nelson go, and that's obviously a big move there, a big kind of strike out of the gate, so to speak, and then to turn around and use that to get Muhammad Wilkerson and Jimmy Graham, basically swapping 1 for 2. And then, the draft that he had, getting an extra first round next year, brought back Tramon Williams and Devon House to kind of fortify the secondary. I don't know. I don't think it's, that damning that he didn't go out and sign a bunch of guys. As John Wooden said, don't mistake activity for achievement. Man, and as always, you got to let it play out. Let's see how the defense coalesces. Let's see how Pettin does with what he's been given. But heck, I think he's had a pretty strong first off season. Trade Montgomery for Shane Ray. We don't need Ty. I don't think anyone's going to take Ty on just because he can't stay on the field. I'd be surprised if someone traded for an injury-prone running back. Any chances of veteran cuts before camp? Always a chance, Josh. I would still watch out for Bulaga. You never know if they get to camp and they don't like the progress or what have you. That could be a surprise. Jake Ryan, I think, is a bit of on the bubble, so to speak, depending on how some of these younger guys play behind him or in front of him. there's all, of course, saying there's going to be surprise cuts. You never know because that's what makes it a surprise. But I think there are possibilities. I don't think any of those are a slam dunk to happen. I think certain things would have to break certain ways for those decisions to be made. But yeah, it's always a possibility. Block it to the Browns. There you go, Mary. Who will be the Packers' #1 running back? Scott, I think we'll start to see that play out here in the OTAs next week. I tend to think Jamal Williams will most likely get the call at first, but I think if Aaron Jones shows that he is improving or has improved in pass protection, I think he'll get the nod eventually. Starting right tackle isn't on the team, ... yet. It's a possibility. Maybe they trade for someone. Maybe someone gets cut, salary cap reasons that we were just talking about, and they go out and find someone. Maybe they trade for someone. You never know. Adrian Peterson, KJ, that ship has sailed. I know there was a lot of talk about it last offseason, but it didn't seem like they were ever really interested. They drafted 3 running backs instead, and I think they'll stick with those guys. Who's the starting fullback? I think Ripkowski and Joe Carriage will undoubtedly battle it out when training camp starts. I've said it here before many times, a couple times on Twitter as well. I thought Joe Carriage played really darn well in camp last year prior to his injury. If he can pick up where he left off, he'll definitely push Ripkowski. I have little doubt of that. I foresee Mike Daniels having a big year alongside Muhammad Wilkerson. I talked about that pretty extensively on my podcast. Make sure you check it out at PackersNews.com. Burks in a hybrid linebacker safety role. Well, Dean, when we asked the personnel guys at the draft, after they drafted him, they seemed pretty adamant that he's going to start strictly as a linebacker. Now, that doesn't mean they won't eventually maybe cross-train him, have him run in a couple different ways, but to start off with, he's definitely just going to be concentrating on linebacker. Do first-year defensive backs typically make impact? It really depends, Ryan. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the Saints. They had a couple of draft picks that really helped them turn their defense around last year. Now, can you count on that? No. And is it I guess not normal, but does it occur often? No. That's why I've said, and I talked about this on the podcast as well, there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of promise, but there's a lot of work to be done. These guys have to come in and prove that they can play at an NFL level, and there's no guarantee that any of them are going to step on the field, including Alexander, including Josh Jackson, that any of these guys are going to step on the field and instantly contribute. They got to prove it down in and down out in camp and then in preseason. Are they looking for a more reliable backup QB? David, not that I've heard, sure sounds like from everything we've been told that they are going to let Deshaun Kaiser and Brett Hundley battle it out for the backup role behind Aaron Rodgers. All right, I'm going to take 1 or 2 more, everybody. Why are we holding on to Hundley? David, because he's in the last year of his deal, which makes him cheap. He knows the offense. They can get through a game with him in case of an emergency. See if he comes back better prepared and possibly plays better in the summer and holds off Deshaun Kaiser. I don't think that's going to happen. But, there's really no reason to cut him. Like I said, he's on the last year of his rookie deal, which makes him dirt cheap. You're not really going to save anything money-wise by cutting him. So let him come back and battle. Where's Pipkins on the depth chart? Down it a little bit. But I've talked about it a couple times. I've talked about it earlier this week. He's got to make the most of every single opportunity every time he steps on the field because he's not going to get a whole lot of them. Just because of the way practices are run and opportunities, especially what you are further down the depth chart, you don't get as many reps as those frontline guys, first and second tier guys. But he's got the talent. The tape shows a guy who has the abilities to play in this league. He just has to do it consistently on a down in and down out basis and show the coaches that he is continuing to improve. Who has more TDs, Adams or Graham? Michael, I'll go with Adams. Will Rodgers be cut this year or no? What you talking about? Super Bowl this year? Christopher, they'll be contenders because they have Aaron Rodgers. and it'll be hard. It's hard to imagine the defense being much worse than it has been for the last 2 years. So that makes them contenders in my book. Really depends on health and getting a few bounces along the way. Every single Super Bowl champion in the last decade, basically, has required a decent amount of luck when it comes to the bill of health, and you need to get a little lucky with the bounce of the football to help you win a game or two. Yeah, it's just, I mean, you don't, including the Patriots. I mean, it's just, that's a big part of it now because of the way rosters are constructed, the way the limited amount of practice time you get together with guys, and the teams that are able to not only adjust when things kind of quote unquote fall apart roster wise, but stay healthy, get a little lucky, make a run. If you've got a good quarterback and a defense that can get timely stops, you'll be in the mix. And I think the Packers set up to be that kind of team, but there's a long way to go. We all know camp comes, that first week of camp comes, and all around the NFL, injuries start piling up, and every year there's so many injuries, as if we've forgotten that they play football. So yeah, that will change the landscape a little bit. But yeah, looking here on paper in mid-May, yeah, the Packers are Super Bowl contenders. There's no doubt. Have all former Packer coaches found new employment? Tom Capers hasn't. Is the Lions' D an issue? We'll see. Patricia's a good defensive coach. They've got talent on that side of the ball. Darius Slay gave the Packers all sorts of problems last year. And the one good part for the Packers, if you're talking about positive side of the ledger, is David Bakhtiari has shown that he can absolutely handle Ziggy Ansah. So that's the one place where the Packers are in the plus side. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. Make sure you check PackersNews.com, not only for my podcast, but all the other stuff we've got up about the Green Bay Packers. If it's going on in the green and gold, we've got it covered for you. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good night.